Hi there, my name is Dean Nutter, and today I'll be presenting Secret Window, which is a movie depicting dissociative identity disorder. My wife and I watched this. So, synopsis of Secret Window. Secret Window is a 2004 psychological thriller that stars Johnny Depp. It was based on the novella Secret Window, Secret Garden in Stephen King's Four Past Midnight collection. Famed mystery writer Mort Rainey, played by Johnny Depp, is confronted by a mysterious stranger outside his house. This stranger calls himself John Shooter, played by John Turturro, and claims that Mort has stolen an idea for a story from him. Mort says he can prove he wrote his first, but whilst Mort waits for the evidence to appear, Shooter starts to become more and more violent. The movie follows Mort's struggles to prove conclusively to Shooter and to himself that he has not plagiarized the story. Shooter continually harasses Mort and later kills his dog. Mort hires a private investigator and asks for the help of the local sheriff, who doesn't believe him. The investigator asks if there are any witnesses, and Mort remembers a local man saw them together. But Shooter then murders both the investigator and the witness and leaves them in a car. Mort then pushes the car into the river, since he thinks the murders will be pinned on him. Sorry for all the spoilers, by the way. Shooter also burns down the house of Mort's soon-to-be ex-wife. Mort is convinced that his ex-wife's boyfriend is the culprit responsible for the arson, since previously he caught them cheating in a motel, and to his shame he pulled a gun on them. The boyfriend also happens to coincidentally come from an area known as Lake Shooter. Mort eventually locates the magazine that proves he published Secret Window before Shooter wrote Sewing Season. He goes to the post office where he gets the magazine. But when he gets out of his car, the sheriff approaches him with a smirk, asking him if he could ask a few questions. Mort then leaves. But when Mort opens the magazine, he finds that his story has been cut out. Mort's inner voice tells him that since the magazine was sent to him in a sealed UPS package, Shooter could not have tampered with it. Prompting from his own subconscious mind leads Mort to the realization that Shooter is not real, only a figment of Mort's imagination brought so vividly to life through undetected dissociative identity disorder to personify the dark side of Mort's personality and to commit acts that Mort himself feels he could not commit, such as murder and arson. This scene includes the moment where Mort sees his back instead of his front reflected in the mirror above his mantelpiece, much like Magritte's 1937 La Reproduction Interdite. During this revelation, his concerned wife drives up to his cabin, and at that instant, he switches alters from the well-meaning Mort to the murderous Shooter. When his wife walks in, he is gone. She starts searching the house for Mort and finds an almost empty bottle of Jack Daniels on a table. We later learn that when influenced by Jack Daniels, Mort's second personality, Shooter, comes alive. All over the walls, she sees inscriptions of the word Shooter. She realizes after Mort reveals himself that Shooter actually means shoot her. After she realizes this, she tries to run away, but Mort is too quick for her. He then kills his wife and her lover Ted with a shovel and buries them in a garden where he later plants a crop of corn. Afterwards, Mort changes profoundly. His writer's block from the beginning of the film is finally over, and his passion for life returns. The movie, however, ends on a rather sinister note. The local sheriff informs Mort that he knows what he did, and as soon as they find the bodies, he'll go to prison. Mort dismisses the statement nonchalantly and replies that the ending is the most important part of the story. This one is very good. This one is perfect. It is then revealed to the audience that the bodies are buried under the cornfield. So for criteria for the diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder, I went ahead and simplified the DSM-5 criteria, and I also mentioned if that criteria was met and some small examples of that in the film. So 1. Disruption of identity between two or more altered personality states. Yes, we can see this in the presentation of both Mort and Shooter as distinct personalities. 2. Recurrent amnesia between alters about everyday events or important personal information. Yes, this is observed where Mort forgets about where he went at night or where he left his keys. 3. Symptoms cause significant distress or dysfunction. Yes, we can see that symptoms impair Mort significantly in his social aspects of life. 4. Symptoms are not better explained by culture, religious beliefs, or fantasy. Yes, there is no example of culture, religious beliefs, or fantasy that can better explain his disorder. 5. Symptoms are not attributable to the physiological effects of a substance or other medical condition. No, this criteria is not met, as it is hinted that alcohol may attribute to the triggering of the Shooter personality. For accuracy in the portrayal of dissociative identity disorder, this portrayal is fairly accurate in some respects, such as the symptoms of dissociative identity disorder in some ways. However, in other ways, it strays from reality quite starkly and may stigmatize a pattern of violence that is not normally prevalent in those with the disorder. For accuracies, amnesia, depersonalization, and derealization, a blurred sense of identity. Switching between alters, particularly in accent, clothing, and mannerisms. For example, Mort kind of speaks with a northern Maine accent, kind of regular American, wears just kind of standard clothing and acts like a reclusive writer, versus Shooter wears the hat depicted in that bottom image. He has an accent that is very southern from Mississippi and has mannerisms of a southern white man. And a history of some traumas and some stressors that may have contributed to the disorder are other accuracies that are involved. For inaccuracies, those are the biggest things that kind of destroy the portrayal's effectiveness. The shooter-alter appeared to be triggered by alcohol abuse. This alter personality also committed violent acts that Mort wanted to secretly commit, but would not normally allow himself to do. Violence is no more typical for those with DID than a normal person, and therefore this disorder was used as mostly a plot device for a violent psychological thriller. While it is interesting, it is fictional. So because of the alcohol abuse triggering the alter personality, that does not meet the criteria and therefore can't accurately portray the disorder. And violence is used with DID in a lot of films. While effective in a thriller, it does not really do much to add to the educational aspect of the film because it's not accurate. For recommendation of the film, in some respects, I could rationalize the usage of this film to teach about some of the symptoms of DID in a realistic fashion. However, overall, this film fails in its ability to accurately portray the disorder and thus cannot be relied on to depict DID as an educational resource. This film is a work of fiction, characterized by a violent alter personality for the sake of making a thrilling film with a creepy twist. The film itself was enjoyable to watch, and some aspects of the disorder were shown in a realistic fashion, but there's enough inaccuracies to dissuade from using it as a method for teaching others about the real psychological effects of the disorder. For references, all I used was Secret Window, and I summarized it to the best of my knowledge. Thank you.